So when we're multiplying and dividing integers, we have to worry about multiplying and dividing with that negative. So if I have negative 3 times negative 3, one way I can describe this is three groups. This is as three groups of negative 3, okay, which is equal to negative 9. But when I have negative 3 times negative 3, basically I have negative 3 groups of negative 3, or the opposite of 3 groups of negative 3. So if I have 3 groups of negative 3, that's negative 9. So that's going to be the opposite of negative 9, which is positive 9. Okay, so we can think of the negative as an opposite. So if we have negative times positive, we get negative, positive, positive is positive, negative, negative is positive. And the negative, negative, we can kind of think of it as an opposite, opposite. The opposite of an opposite is back to where we started. Okay, so maybe I'm going to write that down here. This is opposite of opposite. Okay, so the opposite of opposite, or negative, negative, is a positive. So if I want to draw integer multiplication, I can use my area model, and I can just use the number line. So I have a positive 7. So my number line is positive 7 is right there on the number line. Negative 6 on my number line is going to be down here. So at negative 6 on the y-axis. Okay, positive is up, negative is down, positive is right, negative is left. And this area represents 42 squares. So if I had 7 this way and 6 this way, I can draw in, 42. I can draw in 42 squares here. Okay, so that would represent 42 squares. Okay, now because it's in this quadrant, it's a positive negative, so we say it's negative 42 centimeters squared. So this is a negative positive quadrant. So this is going to be negative. So in this quadrant here, this is a positive negative quadrant. So that's the answer is going to be negative here. Here this is a positive positive quadrant. So the answer will be positive. And here is a negative negative quadrant. So the answer here is positive as well. Okay. So if I were to draw negative 2 times negative 7, okay, I'm going to go negative 2 on the x-axis, negative 7 on the y-axis. Okay, so the number of squares, we're going to have 14 squares in here. Okay, so we have 14 squares, and since it's negative negative, it's going to be positive 14 squares. Okay, so we're going to have a positive area in this quadrant here. Okay, so we're going to end up with positive 14 as our answer. Okay, so when we're talking about this number line, we don't have to always use this number line, but this is the model we can use, and we're going to use this model in terms of when we're dealing with integers, we can model it using coordinates, okay, or position along x and y axis. So when we do multiplication, we're going to not necessarily use the number line, but we will continue to use our grid multiplication. Okay, so if we have like 14 times 12, we break that up into 10 times 10, okay, and 10 plus 14, or sorry, 10 plus 4, and we're going to break that into 10 plus 2, okay, and use our grid model still. Okay, so this is related to the area model. We're just putting this more into context of number line. Okay, and when we think of integers, we can use number line to determine positioning. So the last one here, this one was too many integers to be able to put on any kind of number line. We'd have too many dimensions to it. So we need to be able to have a more efficient method here. So in this case here, we should really figure out, first of all, is the answer positive or negative? And then we need to calculate the answer here. So I'm just going to count. I have 1 negative, negative, negative. I've got three negatives with times and divide. Well, it doesn't matter if it's times or divide. We have three negatives mixed in times or divide. That means I'm going to have negative, 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 or opposite, opposite, opposite. And that means I'm going to have a negative answer. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I know whether my answer is negative or positive. And at this point, once I determine that, I can just do times on top, divide on bottom. I can do times 2 divide by 2 is going to cancel out. I've got some more common factors, but I'm just going to multiply first and then simplify. So I have 24 on top, 3 on bottom. Okay, 24 divided by 3. And again, I already know it's negative. The answer is going to be negative 8. Okay.